Hi, Marilyn. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Good. Thanks again, Jesse, for having me.
Oh, yeah, of course. I got samples of the Popadelic chips last night, and I was on my way to dinner, and I stopped at UPS, picked up the package, and immediately broke into it in the car because I was like, I'm gonna have to like wait for a table, whatever. Like I need a snack, and I almost ate the whole bag of the rosemary
It's
one.
dangerous. They're very addictive. I feel like they have that very savory
Yeah.
aftertaste that makes you want to get another one. So yeah, very dangerous to eat before dinner.
Yeah, oh, so good though. And I like there's a lot of really cool mushroom products out there and we've had some on the podcast and some of them like the texture, I don't know, the texture always just doesn't feel like quite right for me to like eat a bunch or treat it like maybe another snack, but like you have nailed the texture and the flavors and like oh my gosh, like I we opened up all the flavors today and we're eating them, just so delicious. So excited to like learn more. So glad that you're here. Well deserved to win a Shelfie award from Startup CPG because just really incredible product like innovation. So yeah, just so glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here as well. I was very excited when we won the Startup CPG Awards. I think it was actually one of the selling points of the awards that, you guys do kind of give attention to very small new brands that may otherwise not be getting recognition elsewhere. So I think it was very flattering to us, I think, because of how new we are. And actually, it was our first real award win. So very excited and to be part of the community. And I think Startup CPG has helped us in so many other ways too. So I think it was just a kind of a great full circle type of moment. And again, I think it's great to see actually a lot of other mushroom products. To your point, I think on the platform we've met quite a few others that we've actually collaborated with, for example. So all around, very excited about the being a part of the whole community.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I would love if you could, tell us a little bit more about yourself and a little bit about the like founding story.
Sure, yeah, happy to do so. So actually, both me and myself and my co-founder Mike Casali, we're both actually from finance backgrounds. So we're from kind of investing backgrounds, but we always wanted to start a company. And on top of that, we're a couple as well. So we always joke that Fungal Snacks at Popadelics is our COVID baby. But I guess even funnier is that we're both huge mushroom lovers. And that actually was one of the first things we really bonded over when we first met as well. I mean, kind of who would have thought that we would have started a mushroom snack company? I guess. I mean, it's not like we met and started the company the next day, but I think so many things just make so much sense in retrospect. And have to give actually COVID a lot of credit for us actually pulling the trigger and starting the company. So, as I said, we kind of always had a dream of starting a company coming from finance. And I think we felt like we would work well together professionally as well, kind of beyond, personally, and we just never had the right idea. And so we never really pulled the trigger on anything. I mean, we would chat about it every now and then. And I think it took COVID for us to sit down and actually come up with an idea, but also be able to have the time to run with it. And again, it was super organic how Fungal Snacks and Popadelics came about. Like, we're both huge mushroom lovers, and we're, especially being stuck in our New York City apartments during COVID, the only excitement in our day was going to the grocery store. So I think it got us kind of in a food state of mind, in particular a CPG state of mind. And we quickly noticed that, I guess to your point, there are, I mean, even beyond mushroom snacks that are out there, there's just not a lot of mushroom snacks, at least in mainstream grocery stores quite yet. It's a lot of kale, cauliflower, and actually, I was really into these cauliflower snacks. It's Rhythm Superfoods snacks are really good, and it kind of just came up in conversation one day, like, oh, I mean, if they're making snacks out of kale, cauliflower, chickpeas, why shouldn't they be making snacks out of mushrooms too, and specifically crunchy mushroom snacks? Since, like you, I mean, we've come across mushroom jerkies and such as well, and we went out to try to find some, and we were quickly surprised that there's just not a lot of crunchy mushroom snacks out there. And the stuff that was out there was unbranded, unflavored, basically a lot of lost potential. And this is around the same time. I mean, this was about 2 years ago during COVID, so in 2020. But even back then, there was kind of the rise in popularity of mushrooms of all kinds. So we started in New York, especially seeing mushroom coffees and mushroom teas at all these coffee shops, mushroom clothing everywhere, mushroom print. So it just felt like really good timing from that perspective. And there not really being another product out there, and it being during COVID where we had free time. it was kind of a perfect storm, and we were like, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. Let's go ahead and do it. And so we decided to start the company at that point. And it's been a pretty actually it's been a pretty quick journey, I guess. I think there were times where we felt like things were taking forever because if you can imagine, we were trying to set up production and supply chain in the depths of COVID. But especially once we launched our product, which wasn't until actually April of this year, I think things have basically been nonstop after that. I mean, it's been pretty crazy. I think a lot of things have happened just very quickly. And it's funny because I'll connect with a few friends who, I've kind of filled them in here or there along our journey. But every time I speak to them, it's like, oh, here's the list of 20 things that have happened since I last spoke to you. So it's pretty crazy, I guess, the pace at which things happen in startup land. But it's a very good change of pace for us, I guess, coming from more corporate type of jobs where things happen slower. And super excited, I think, for the long term future as well. We were talking before the show about how we've kind of set a lot of stuff up for our company for kind of a much bigger presence or footprint in the future. And I didn't touch upon it yet, but we started obviously the corporate umbrella fungal snacks alongside the product, which is Popadelics crunchy mushroom chips. And part of that is because when we were thinking of Popadelics, it wasn't just mushrooms that came to mind. There were so many other vegetables that we thought would make amazing snacks that you just don't see in the grocery store. We call these kind of underloved veggies, so kind of bringing the underdog to the spotlight. That was kind of maybe our broader long-term goal with other vegetables as well. So we're pretty excited for what that will bring. Obviously, we're very Popadelics focused today, but also very excited, I think, for what more we could do with a lot of other vegetables that are out there, actually utilizing a similar cooking method as well, which we can maybe go into a bit later. But very long-winded way of saying that it's been a very exciting journey, and I'm very excited for Startup CPG to be a part of that as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was going to ask next, like, how long did it take and what does it look like to nail that crunchiness that you've achieved? Because I think, like, what you're saying makes sense to me of like, yeah, there's like mushroom jerkies out there and everything. And for me, like, I'm just like a crunchy snack lover. So when I like bit into one of your chips, I was like, oh, like, yeah, this is the texture I love. It's like eating another type of chip and then you've got the flavor. So like, how did you achieve that? Did you like figure it out at home or like what did it look like to nail that?
Yeah, so we had a ton of help, so can't take full credit at all. But I think this was one of those very small world, leveraging your network type of lucky break situations. But being in finance, I do some angel investing myself as well. And so before starting the company, I'd actually been in touch with this smoothie company, actually became kind of personal friends and acquaintances with the founder as well. And so she was one of the first calls I made when we first kind of, even before we formally, I think, started the company, just to get advice on starting a CPG brand or company. And we're not food people, so neither Mike nor myself are food people. We don't really cook. I think being in New York City, we just got used to eating out and whatever. So we had no idea where to start with in terms of actually physically developing the product. I think we had a very clear vision. Like we were very clear early on that we wanted it to be a full mushroom cap and we want it to be this very crunchy texture. We had no idea how to get there, obviously, but we had a pretty clear idea of what the end product might look like. And so I called up this kind of smoothie founder, and it was very fortunate actually that the founder of this one consulting firm for food startups called Rodeo CPG, who I'm pretty sure you all may know as part of your network as well. The founder was on their board, and so she was able to put me in touch with Rodeo, and actually it timed up well to where I think we may have even been their first R&D client per se. So they have a lot of consulting services. I think they've kind of started their bread and butter in more of that supply chain side, but they were just actually bringing on an R&D arm when we reached out to them. And so there was, again, a lot of stars aligning where we started working with their R&D team, and we really wouldn't have been able to do it, I think, as quickly without their help. I mean, I think very quickly we were able to we tried a ton of different types of mushrooms, not even to mention different types of cooking methods. But it was really, I think, thanks to them that we would have kind of found out about the cooking method that we landed on. It's a cooking method called vacuum frying. It's not very common in the US today. The only real large company that does it here today is Terra Chips. So TERRA chips. Their chips are actually vacuum fried. But other
Oh.
than them, there's like no vacuum frying going on really, at least at scale. It's very common again in Asia. And so I had no idea what vacuum frying was, and I'm still not a food scientist at all, but basically it's a lot healthier of a way to get a frying texture is basically the short end of it. So you're basically, it requires this very large specialized equipment. It's like cooking in a vacuum chamber. And if you're a science person, you'll appreciate that at a lower pressure, the boiling point of water is lower. And so you're able to cook at a much lower temperature, but also still resulting kind of that crispy texture. And so it's much, much healthier than when you think about what frying is. And the reason it's called frying is because you're still cooking in oil. But because you're cooking at a much lower temperature, you're not killing off the nutrients. And it also requires a lot less oil. So you're not actually kind of retaining as much of the oil content. So much healthier way to get to that texture. And I think we see a lot of opportunity again, I think with other vegetables, I think vacuum fried as well. It is a bit difficult because the machinery just isn't widely available domestically. So sourcing is a bit kind of convoluted. But yeah, I think that was a lucky break on a lot of different fronts.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's really cool. I love like hearing about different like food tech pieces, and so wow, that's really cool. And then part of your profits or percentage or something, you created a foundation as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so again, I think part of our whole kind of grand master plan, I think it was really important to both Mike and myself when we started the company that we definitely wanted to have some angle of social impact. I think beyond just the company itself. So I think we thought it made a lot of sense to kind of start a separate entity. So it's almost like a two startups in one, I guess, because the foundation is a separate entity that we set up. It's a 401c3 kind of nonprofit that we set up foundation. And the ultimate goal for the foundation is that we'll be identifying a number of different causes to support in the broader health and wellness world that are kind of tangentially food related to our core products, such as Popadelics. And we felt that it was just with our branding and everything, and I think with mushrooms as a whole, I think gaining a lot of attention, I think beyond just for eating, but also on the psychedelic and mental health treatment side. I think one of the first kind of interesting causes that we kind of found when we were thinking about kind of what kind of causes we would want to support is the Johns Hopkins Institute for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research. And so that was kind of the first maybe identified cause that we want to support, but ultimately we would want to throw other kind of causes that are similar in nature. So again, kind of centered around broadly health and wellness. So for example, maybe food security, or possibly, supporting certain types of cultural foods in Chinatowns around, especially me coming from a Chinese background too. I think that was another kind of, especially during COVID, another a part of the charitable aspect that I was interested in. So I think we have a lot of, I think, aspirations for what the foundation itself can even become on its own. But I think for now, I think we're very kind of focused on tying that to mushrooms broadly. So supporting also the research that's being done in terms of psychedelic mushrooms and how there are a lot of innovations in terms of using psilocybin, for example, to treat addiction and other mental health issues.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm super fascinated to keep following the research that's happening. And for any listeners that, are looking to learn more just about mushrooms in general or some of like these topics that like with what Johns Hopkins like Foundation is researching, there's some really great Netflix content out there now with like Fantastic Fungi, and like there's some explained content. And then I think the Michael Pollan's like from his book, This Is Your Mind on Plants, I think like there's just really interesting content out there about, what we're going to continue to see the research doing. So I love that you're supporting that research while, having fun snacks in the world. Like, and it's so cool. And I can't wait to see what it grows into and the different causes that you support. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're super excited. I think just for as a lifelong mushroom lover, it was kind of like, oh, finally people are paying attention to mushrooms, because I remember even being made fun of as a kid for liking mushrooms because it just wasn't really I guess, a mainstream thing. And it's really cool to see that I think a lot of people who maybe even didn't like mushrooms before are now at least paying attention to it, or kind of experiencing mushrooms, I think, in a different way. And I think that was kind of the goal with our snacks as well. I think with that crunchy texture is just not something that people naturally associate with mushrooms. And so we love, actually, our favorite thing seeing at, events or sampling or whatever is when people who claim not to like mushrooms or hate mushrooms or whatever, they try our snacks, but they're like, oh wow, this is amazing. And I think that's always our favorite thing, I think, to convert what we call a mushroom doubter into a potential mushroom lover. And I think a big part of that is that, people, especially here in the US, where most of the mushrooms you get are basically just one type of mushroom. It's the white button mushrooms, portobello. And we use shiitake, which itself is already a different type of mushroom. But on top of that, we're cooking it in a completely different way. And so I think it's just really cool to see, I think, the broad adoption of mushrooms in a kind of a bigger audience.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, there's so many different types. It wasn't really until recently that I discovered there was so many different types. Like we're lucky to have a farmers market close to us where we can go and get lobster mushrooms and like all these different types, and the person will tell you like, "Oh, cook this with this and this with this and different flavors and textures." And there's just it's kind of a whole world that yeah, I think is just kind of opening up. And so it sounds like your love of mushrooms goes way back though. Like I didn't realize it was like back to like as a child. Like can you share a little bit about that? Like how far back the mushroom love goes?
I think as far back as I can remember, so I was a really weird kid, clearly. So I was super, super picky. I was one of those kids that, my parents could not get me to eat anything, but mushrooms they never had a problem with. So I distinctly remember, and actually I wouldn't mind doing this even today. I used to, I guess, get my parents to order me supreme pizzas, like from Pizza Hut, but I would only end up picking the mushrooms off of it because I think as a kid, I think I had this weird idea that the only place I could get mushrooms was off of a pizza or something like that, like because they were like cooked in this like really nice way because it was baked with the pizza or whatever.
Mhm.
And so in my mind, I was like, oh, the only way I'm going to get baked mushrooms is if I get the pizza and I pick it off. So yeah, so I was super weird. I think I've always loved mushrooms to the point where actually it's really funny when I first started the company and told people about Popadelics. Like none of my friends were surprised, and actually my favorite quote from one of my friends is she actually said this to me. She said, "Marilyn, that's so on brand for you." So I was just known even among my friend group as being kind of the mushroom gal, I guess. So I think a lot of things make so much sense in retrospect, which is actually really funny to think about. I mean, it's kind of like a wonder that I didn't start the company sooner. I think given
Yeah,
this whole fact pattern, but it's really fun to kind of think back on.
that's amazing. Well, so like what's coming up next for like in 2023? Like are there stores that you're looking to get into? Like, what's kind of top of mind for you? What should we be keeping an eye out for in the near future?
Yeah, so a lot of different things. Maybe I'll go through all of our sales channels. So we are true omni-channel, like any modern CPG brand these days. So we do a lot of both physical and online D2C. So we of course have Popadelics.com and Amazon, but we also love doing in-person kind of fairs, so Vegan Dale type events. We're actually going to be at the New Jersey Vegan Food Festival this weekend. So we're going to continue to be doing those. I think primarily because we're based in New York City. Most of the events we've done thus far have been New York City or East Coast based, but next year we hope to do a lot more on the West Coast. We do kind of have a growing kind of fan base, so to speak, kind of on the West Coast and Pacific Northeast, for example, and Northwest. So we're pretty excited about kind of expanding some of our events footprint to the West Coast. And in terms of the wholesale side of things, we have some pretty exciting retail launches coming up. So one of our flavors, Twisted Thai Chili, will actually be in Urban Outfitters
Oh,
starting I
wow.
think later this year, actually. So that's going to be nationwide. So it's going to be one of the first actually nationwide type places that you could get our snacks, which we're excited about. On top of that, there's a few other kind of really cool retailers that we're excited to announce over the next few months. And we recently were actually accepted into DPI Specialty Foods. They're a large distributor, actually primarily on the West Coast. They actually had a special program for emerging brands called a New Product Showcase that we were fortunate enough to be chosen for. And so we'll be launching with them, kind of coinciding with the new year as well. So I think a lot of us kind of expanding into the West that we're pretty excited about for the next year. So that's going to kick off actually at Winter Fancy Food Show. So if anyone's going to be at Winter Fancy Food Show who may be listening or in the broader startup CPG community, we're pretty excited to be kicking off with DPI there. But yeah, so I think that's the whole summary. Obviously, a lot going on all fronts, but super excited, I think, to be kind of expanding our geographic footprint.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's super exciting. So yeah, I would encourage everyone listening, make sure to go to popadelics.com. That's Popadelics. So like the word psychedelic, but you got Papa in front of it. It's so fun. I love it. Like I love the name so much. So Popadelics.com, and then you have your social channels as well. Like you can search that on Instagram and make sure to follow the latest updates. And then if you're not near a store, go to Amazon, go to the website, because I think everyone's gonna love these once they give them a try. Like I'm so excited to share the samples you sent me with more people, and convert them to Popadelics lovers. So it's been
It
so
is kind of
cool.
like a try it to believe it kind of situation. I think a lot
Yeah,
of people, yeah, it is kind of a bit of a, actually no pun intended, a mind trip for the texture. So yeah, so definitely follow us on social media. We do have sampling events. Actually, we have one actually going on in LA this weekend as well. So we try to do kind of different events at a bunch of our different retailers. We have a store locator. Obviously, you can order online, but yeah, a lot of ways to get a hold of us. So yeah, we're pretty excited to continue to spread actually the mushroom craze and the mushroom love.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for spending a little time with me today. So glad that you're in the Startup CPG community and that you won a Shelfie. And just like, yeah, I'm so glad that I've gotten to try your product, and can't wait to continue to follow your progress and cheer you on. And all your whole Startup CPG community is behind you as well. So thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks again, Jesse. And again, we couldn't have done this all. I think we had a lot of really great connections from Startup CPG. So we're super excited to continue to be part of the community and hopefully even start helping other people kind of as we start getting more of our footing as well.